Let's bring in Patrick Murphy now, former Democratic congressman and former Undersecretary of the Army, and Tammy Bruce, Fox News contributor and host of Get Tammy Bruce on Fox Nation. I'll get your top-line thoughts in just a moment. Interesting reaction coming in now from one of the GOP presidential candidates, Vivek Ramaswamy, on today's indictment of Hunter Biden. He calls it a smokescreen, says don't fall for it. This is a fig leaf designed to deflect attention away from the real problem, he writes on Twitter. The Biden family selling out U.S. foreign policy for their own family's private financial gain. That is really what is wrong. It is a very lengthy statement that I would take too much time on television to read right now. But this is just an example of the varying degrees of reaction that we're hearing, congressional reaction and beyond. What do you make it of?
Well, because it is a big story. It's bigger than just Hunter Biden getting a sweetheart deal. What's fascinating, and including in the previous conversation, is that not only did the DOJ sign off on this, but they didn't even consider what the judge might do or what the judge might say. There was a presumption that this would be the way it goes, that this would just be stepping forward, indicating that this is how things have happened before. But it was so strange, even the judge, it was just so obviously, it's like this had never been handled like this before. It was completely new. So that's one aspect of how the system shifted and said, no, wait a minute. It just took one judge to do that. But I think for the American people, the larger story, based on the 2016 election and even everything else we've seen before, is that things are not as they appear to be, that there's something else going on. The American people have been lied to. The two-tier system of justice, of course, but that means that we are being gaslit all the time about who's getting, justice, who isn't, what the government is doing. And maybe it's the internet, maybe it's our generation, maybe it was Donald Trump, maybe it's just the mood of the world, is that now we find out we don't like what we see. And this could be an indication of we've got to do something, and they're hoping the rest of it will just go
Let me
away.
get your reaction after I first play this. I told our viewers we were going to go back in time. This is May 5th, 2023. The president himself speaking about his son. Listen.
Well, my son's done nothing wrong. I trust him. I have faith in him. And it impacts my presidency by making me feel proud of him.
Now your response.
Well, his son clearly did something wrong, and that's why he got the plea deal that we're talking about over a month ago was for the misdemeanor for the taxes. This is a bigger deal. This is a felony. This is a gun, lying on a gun form when he was under the influence of drugs. He checked the box. Yeah. I'm a gun owner. I had to go through the same process. Yeah. But I think, unlike Tammy, with all due respect, I think the big story is here, if you're a Fox viewer or an MSNBC viewer, it's the rule of law. That in the United States of America, no one is above the law, whether you're the former president of the United States or current president's son. And so I think Hunter Biden, clearly he's being held accountable. He's going to be held accountable for lying on that form, and that's why the plea deal...
Well, we don't know that part yet. We don't know if he will be held accountable.
And only because of the outrage. That, in fact, we were watching two very different situations go on. Punishing political opponents, throwing everything in the kitchen sink at one guy, and then you're going to waltz, the president's son through another dynamic, who now we're seeing seems to have been involved with the president himself, his business dealings, and that's another big story.
I had read off Jonathan Turley, who joined us earlier, saying this may be the first child of a sitting president ever indicted. He went on to say, and I'll share this portion of it, there's little room for a defense here beyond what I previously raised, challenging the constitutionality of the underlying law under the Second Amendment. However, to do so, Hunter would be challenging a law that his father enthusiastically supports, with cases that his father has vigorously condemned. Having Hunter go full NRA could present political problems for the president.
I don't think so. I think most folks understand that the president is in a tough spot, that he is leading this nation, but at the same time, his son is struggling. And I think most Americans see that and have empathy, that his son was under the influence of illegal drugs. And no one has made an excuse for that, not even the president.
But you know what has eclipsed that already, though, Patrick, I have to say, is the fact that we all feel lied to. We feel lied to through the campaign and what Biden presented himself as. We feel lied to about what Hunter Biden was doing, the New York Post being censored, the laptop stories.
Hunter
It's been
Biden
lie after lie.
Hunter Biden has published a book talking about his drug use. They're not lying about it.
No,
the fact
they
is this,
can't
is
lie about that. They're lying about
when
the
he was
process
doing
of what's
drugs and
happened
he's under the influence of drugs, he committed 2 crimes. He didn't pay his taxes, which is wrong, and he checked the wrong box, and he lied on a form trying to get a gun, a Colt weapon.
But to Tammy's point, let's keep getting the president's own words in here. We pulled another clip from an interview with the president. Listen here.
By the way, this thing about a gun, I didn't know anything about it, but turns out that when he made an application to purchase a gun, what happened was I guess you get asked, I don't guess, you get asked the question, are you on drugs, you use drugs? He said no. And he wrote about saying no in his book. So I have great confidence in my son.
Okay, that ties both of your points together. That was October last year.
It would be nice to just kind of get a pass if you write about all your crimes.
Listen, can I just say the big picture here? I mean, there's probably 2 indictments. This isn't for the gun and then the tax one. But let's be clear. The former president has 4 indictments on him. When he insurrected a riot on January 6th, there was 3 cops that were killed. There was no one killed with Hunter Biden's gun here. And again, I'm not making an excuse for it. But
you're deflecting, and that's all right.
I'm not deflecting.
It's a
I'm
hard
being very
topic.
clear.
I mean, it's hard because
no, it's actually very clear that you either believe in rule of law and accountability or you don't. I happen to believe it, and when the shoe's on this foot, I'm saying he should be held accountable. When the shoe's on that foot, the former president should be held accountable as well.
Yeah, and there's been no effort, or I think no one's been arguing that Donald Trump has been getting a pass on anything, whether it exists in real life or not. I mean, the FBI, we've also seen, and this is troubling, I know, for you and for everyone in the country, willing to make things up to try to frame someone. Many Americans, particularly people of color, young black men, have argued that we keep getting set up. When you're right, the justice system comes after us. Americans now have experienced this dynamic in real time, where this is a big issue for all of us. And then we see other people get coddled. That isn't the American way. No, we're not going to be naive. This is an imperfect system with imperfect people. But my goodness, the basic standard of justice, which keeps this country together and which keeps us functioning as a representative democracy and as a republic, is because we believe that there is a structure of justice and freedom and fairness. And so far, we haven't seen that. This is what's got to change.
Let me just add some more congressional reaction here. Senator Mike Braun, I hope David Weiss doesn't consider his job done after indicting Hunter Biden on a charge he already admitted to. This decision confirms that an impeachment inquiry is the only way we're going to get to the truth on Hunter Biden's influence peddling abroad and how involved President Biden was in those business dealings.
Sandra, as a former federal prosecutor and as a former congressman, this is through the justice system where it should be. And that indictment, they need to make it now because the statute of limitations ends next month in October. This should not be touching the impeachment thing, because this has nothing to do with governing or the president. This is Hunter Biden, in his personal capacity, bought a weapon and lied about an application. This has nothing to do. The president wasn't holding his hand in that gun shop in Delaware. So,
but you did mention the tax issue. I mean, there's the separate tax problems with Hunter Biden, and that's about a massive amount of income that's coming in, not just to Hunter, but to other Biden family members, and linked with now, as we know, through multiple frameworks, to Joe Biden. That's where it comes in.
We don't know that. Actually, we don't know that.
Well, that's what the investigation we're going to...
That's what they're trying, but that hasn't been...
No, we know that through bank records. We know that through other investigations, and that's what's important about the impeachment investigation. This is where you can subpoena that kind of information.
I would just say that...
And why it's either, if you're innocent, then you should welcome it, because then you're going to be exonerated.
Okay, real quick, final thought.
I don't think the American people, I think people are conflating the 2 issues here. I think we should absolutely, in our country, whether you're the former president or the president's son now, no one is above the law.
Okay.
Not even Hunter Biden, and no offense, not even the former President Trump.
Tammy, real quick, final.
No, I think that this is what the system's for us to get to the truth of the matter, even when the Department of Justice will lie about you and will bring aggressive points about you because you're a political...
I gave her final.
I know, but I just think it's hard. As an American, I have a hard problem when I'm here at Fox News and people are bashing law enforcement across America. My father served...
Who's bashing law enforcement?
She just said, FBI's lying.
You're making it sound like it's... Department of Justice.
Okay.
You know better than that.
Okay, rule of law. We heard you, and we've got each of your final thoughts on that. We appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.